More, let's bring in presidential historian Allan Lichtman. He joins me from Bethesda, Maryland. All right, so Allan, you were correct on your prediction for Biden winning this election. So I've been dying to talk to you about this, waiting for this moment. What are your thoughts on Biden now becoming the 46th president of the United States? I think we might have, Allan, can you hear us? Okay, I think we might have a little bit of an issue, and we'll try to get him back. We might have to try and get him back on the line as soon as we can. But just a reminder to everybody that Joe Biden has been elected the 46th U.S. president of the United States after Pennsylvania was declared in Joe Biden's column. And right now we're going to see if we can get Allan Lichtman back on the line. Allan, are you there?
I'm back. I'm just getting buzzed by so many people.
I know. Because you're the man everybody wants to talk to, because you predicted that Joe Biden would win this election. So I want to get your gut reaction right now. This news just came on the wire 10 minutes ago. What's your reaction?
You know, my keys to the White House, in which I've now been right 10 times in a row, are based upon the proposition that it is governing, not campaigning, that counts. And I am very gratified to see, once again, that notion is validated in this election. Donald Trump lost this election, as I've explained many times on your air, because he failed to respond to the challenges of his time, to the COVID-19 pandemic, which is still raising. And by the way, while he's made all these bogus charges of voter fraud, he hasn't said anything about the surging pandemic that's taking the lives of Americans and infecting them. And he never responded to the cries for social and racial justice in America. Donald Trump has no one to blame but himself for this defeat. And I have a message for Donald Trump. Shut down all of these baseless lawsuits. Do not drag on needlessly for your own self-gratification the agony of the American people. Take a lesson from, of all people, Richard Nixon, who lost by a razor-thin margin to John Kennedy in 1960 and had far more basis for challenging the election than Donald Trump did. And he told his supporters, I am not going to do it. I am not going to threaten, for my own political purposes, the integrity of our democracy by launching lawsuits and dragging this out. I am going to concede, and he did gracefully and nobly, as did Al Gore after losing his election by only 537 votes in the state of Florida. And he had good cause to complain because tens of thousands of African-American votes were discarded. He didn't do that. He gave an incredibly uplifting, positive speech that sustained the tradition of losing candidates, upholding American democracy. Donald Trump, stop what you're doing. It's only going to be a stain on your own legacy, and it's not going to change the results of this election.
Now, Allan, that is a powerful request, but we know, and we've been watching Donald Trump for the last 4 years, he dances to the beat of his own drum. Do you think that he will actually do that? Do you think he will actually stop all of these legal, gymnastics that he's trying to change the outcome of this election?
No, I don't expect him to listen to me or to the myriad of other voices who give him wise counsel. But, in the end, it's not going to matter. Donald Trump can huff, he can puff. It's not going to change a single vote. He is finished. Joe Biden is going to be the next president, and not all Donald Trump's tears are going to erase that. If he cares at all about his legacy, and maybe he doesn't, he only cares about gratifying his ego and stirring up his base, he will start acting very, very differently and act like other losing candidates who have much more basis for grievances have acted, and stop attacking and undermining our democracy, start supporting it. At this point, these few days since the election have been the worst moments in the history of the presidency. Needlessly and dangerously attacking the integrity of a full and fair election. The American people need to be congratulated. In the midst of the worst pandemic in 100 years, they turned out in record numbers. We've had a smooth and absolutely fair election. And by the way, this election was close in the sense that it's close in a number of key states for the Electoral College. It is not close in terms of the verdict of the American people overall. They have given Joe Biden one of the most thumping mandates in the history of the country. He is on track in terms of numbers to have the biggest margin in history, and in terms of percentage, even to have a much bigger margin than Hillary Clinton did when she lost last time, but won the popular vote, and a much bigger margin, even percentage-wise, than John F. Kennedy in 1960 or Richard Nixon in 1968.
And Allan, right now, as you're speaking, we have live video of people celebrating in the streets in Philadelphia, one of the states that was key in Biden winning. Let's also take an overview of this whole election and the record-breaking number of people who came out to vote. Talk to us about that. What do you think? What was it about this election that brought everybody out to vote?
I think I've said this and others, that this was indeed the most consequential election in the history of the country. Joe Biden and Donald Trump represented very, very different paths for the future. A Biden presidency, he's not a dynamic Barack Obama, but he is a non-threatening, reconciling, empathetic figure that could not be more in contrast to Donald Trump. I believe him when he says he's going to be the president of all the people. I believe him when he says he's trying to heal the divisions that Donald Trump has stoked. I believe him when he says he's going to be honest as compared to the most mendacious president by far in the history of the country. And on so many issues, things are going to change. Start with an understated issue in this campaign, climate change. Donald Trump has turned back the clock on fighting climate change. If we don't solve climate change, our planet is going to be unlivable. We're going to see fundamental changes in tax policy, in immigration policy, in healthcare policy. We're going to see a rebuilding of our damaged alliances abroad. So much is going to change. And I have to say, to Trump's supporters, I understand why you might fervently support Donald Trump. We've seen this before. People have fervently supported their candidates and they have lost. My message to them is adjust to the new reality. Try to be a force, as much as you may disagree with Joe Biden, for healing and uniting the country. As Gerald Ford said, we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I believe, despite a few extremists, the vast majority of Trump supporters will come in line with that very wise wisdom from a former Republican congressional leader and U.S. president.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point of talking to the Trump supporters who, of course, are going to be very upset with these results. Well, what do you think President Biden will need to do to make sure that he gets kind of brings the country together? Because he seems so divided right now, and especially during this election.
Well, he's been doing the right thing so far. He didn't prematurely claim victory, whereas Trump claimed victory when it was clear he was going to lose, falsely claiming that somehow any vote cast for Biden was an illegal vote. That's an absurdity. So, Biden has struck absolutely the right tone in terms of his humility, his desire to be the president of all people. And I think what he needs to do is do what he did as United States Senator. Reach out across the aisles and try to achieve some kind of consensus. I think there are a host of issues on which consensus can be achieved. For example, infrastructure. Our infrastructure is terribly in need of repair, and I think both Republicans and Democrats absolutely recognize that. More in the way of sentencing reform, which both sides have supported. Obviously, there's a critical need to directly address and deal with the pandemic. I can't believe that most Republicans wouldn't agree with that as well. We need a new stimulus package. We got one across the aisles earlier. I think Joe Biden can work to achieve that. And I think he should put some Republicans into his cabinet to show that there is real substance behind his words to reach across the aisles and to bring all Americans together.
All right, well, we're out of time, but I want to say, as we are watching video of Biden supporters cheering in the streets in Philadelphia, Allan Lichtman, you were right. You were right. Once again, that is presidential historian Allan Lichtman. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. The American people were right.
Yeah.